Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing whether or not Elon Musk and President Trump were showing signs of a strained relationship before the huge public fallout. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. So today we're going to be watching two different clips. First, we're going to be watching clips from the farewell press conference for Elon Musk. This is where President Trump and Elon Musk are basically saying he's wrapped up and done with DOGE. We're going to see if there is any hidden tension there, see if there's any hidden indication that this was about to happen. And what we're going to do after that is we're going to go 3 months back. We're actually going to watch a Sean Hannity interview from Fox News. We're going to see them interacting. This is them talking about the media attempting to tear them apart. We'll see if there were any hidden tensions even back then. All right, let's just jump right in.
Today it's about a man named Elon, and he's one of the greatest business leaders and innovators the world has ever produced. He stepped forward to put his very great talents into the service of our nation, and we're...
So for anybody who has watched President Trump for any length of time knows that if there was true animosity between them at this time, if there was equal animosity and they were disliking each other at this moment, there is no way that he would have said those things about Elon Musk. Just from a behavioral perspective, I cannot fathom that President Trump would say those things about Elon Musk with any expectation or anticipation that there could be that public meltdown just a couple of days after this.
Appreciate it. And I just want to say that Elon has worked tirelessly helping lead the most sweeping and consequential government reform program in generations. And you know the kinds of things that he's found and his people have found. He's brought a group of very smart people.
So I had interpreted previously, because I analyzed this before, with Elon crossing his arms as just finding a comfortable way to stand, which is possible, but it's also possible that he was feeling a little bit closed off from President Trump or closing himself off from President Trump. So while this isn't a very strong sign of body language that there's something going on between them or that there's a problem, he doesn't always stand like this. So it is possible that to some degree he was feeling a little bit defensive. He was closing his arms in that way. But at the same time, as you can see, his body is facing President Trump, the way that his head is tilted his way. It doesn't seem like things certainly were at any degree like they were when he started posting on Twitter and all of that. But we'll get into that.
$1 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Berkeley.
Now, I want to point out something right here that a lot of people have been critical of in my last video, which is if you watch Elon Musk moving his neck right here, he does this several times throughout. Watch this right here.
In New York City, $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma.
All right, I've had a number of people say that it's because he's using substances and this is him reacting to that. The reason I think that is unlikely, and there's more likely another explanation for it, is that he responds too well and too coherently to all the questions that are asked of him. You may not like what he has to say, but it is pretty coherent. I've sat with a lot of people using a lot of different kinds of substances. I think his behavior, at least that part, obviously it looks a little bit weird, but I think there's an explanation for that. I don't think the most likely explanation is that he's on drugs. What I think is more likely is that he really doesn't care how he looks on camera and doesn't really care what people think. I think it has more to do with ego than substances. I find that far more likely.
New York City, $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. A special government employee. Can you imagine? They call him an employee, but it's a special government employee, and for coming and helping us, and he really has changed the mindset of a lot of people.
See, now this was also interesting. After he talked about him being an employee, watch his head movement right here. Watch Elon Musk.
Imagine they call him an employee, but it's a special government employee, and for coming and...
So he's acknowledging the power difference here. He's acknowledging that he is an employee of the government or of the president. I don't know how he thinks of it, but point being is he's nodding his head yes, that he's an employee. He's not sitting and crossing his arms or getting defensive during that. So he's acknowledging the power difference, which is interesting given what happened when he felt like he was out of power, the meltdown that he had on Twitter after this. But once again, we'll get more into that. But I just want to point out right here, it does seem that he's okay with the idea of a power differential.
Helping us, and he really has changed the mindset of a lot of people. A lot of people thought, maybe we'll cut 1% or 2% or 3%. Then they said, wow, we can cut a lot more than that. And we're going to do it very surgically. We're going to continue on the march. We're making America great again. When I was in Saudi,
I pointed out last time also that he's chewing the inside of his mouth, which I think is more of a sign of boredom and wanting President Trump to get on with it than a sign of being angry or hostile. We don't see a brow that looks angry. There doesn't seem to be any overt signs of anger at this point. I haven't seen any yet.
But it goes to very special people, and I thought I'd give it to Elon as a presentation from our country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elon.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. You see the luck. The luck on this is amazing.
That's right. Large luck.
Well, let me say perhaps a few words that this is not the.
So right here, this is the body language that, if anything suggests there could have been problems, would be it. Now, this is steepling, which if you've watched my other videos, you've probably heard me talk about this before. This is when we are the expert in the room, when we're the smartest guy in the room, or when we perceive ourselves that way. When people are in court, when they speak like this, when they use steepling, they actually are seen as more believable. So this can be a very powerful way to gain authority. Now, I took this as him having authority as speaking to the press, that's who he was showing authority to, and that very well may be exactly what he's doing. However, it's also possible that if he is one-on-one with President Trump, he may also be doing this, and that would suggest a very different dynamic. If he wants to be in power and he wants to be above everybody else, if he's doing this elsewhere too, then that likely means that he sees himself as the most important person and smartest person in the room.
But the DOGE team will only grow stronger over time. The DOGE influence will only grow stronger. I'd liken it to sort of Buddhism.
So right now he's basically talking about how powerful DOGE is. You're seeing him go back to steepling and then opening his hands up for emphasis. So what he's doing is he's going between being the expert and then emphasizing how important what he is saying is. He's saying, I'm an expert, and this is so important. Now, look, if you look at President Trump right now, he is looking at Elon Musk. He's trying to connect with him. He's listening to him. You're not seeing him reciprocate that. You're not seeing Elon Musk look back at President Trump, because right now Elon Musk is taking this as his time and how important this is.
And I'll continue to be visiting here and be a friend and advisor to the president. And I look forward to time spent back in this amazing room. By the way.
Now, you'll notice Elon Musk continued to do this steepling throughout talking about this, which means that he is talking about how important he is, how important the work he's done is, and he may reflect on it that way. It really may genuinely be how he sees it. One thing that's interesting, though, is he didn't really look at President Trump as he was talking about remaining friends with him and coming back to the White House. There was no sign that there was hostility or that he was angry, but there was less of a connection this time than there was in some previous press conferences, at least from Elon Musk's side. President Trump actually seemed basically the same as he always has.
So I look forward to continuing to be a friend and advisor to the president, continuing to support the DOGE team, and we are relentlessly pursuing $8 trillion in.
But as you can see with the way he's standing, he is still slightly facing President Trump. His head tilts President Trump's way. There aren't signs that right now that Elon Musk is angry and getting ready to explode. And according to President Trump, he already knew everything that was in that bill, so it shouldn't have been a shock to him a couple of days later when he totally went off on him.
And waste and fraud reductions, which will benefit the American taxpayer. So that's it, really.
Thank you, President Trump. The president mentioned that you had to deal with all the slings and arrows during your time at DOGE. There's this.
Well, some of the people, some of the media organizations in this room were the slingers.
Well, so there is a New York Times report today that accuses you of.
See, now that was a time where he actually looked back at President Trump for camaraderie. He was laughing about the fact that they both dislike certain aspects of the press. He attempted to look back at him. Watch this right here.
Well, so there is a New York Times report today.
See, there's still a desire for connection. They seem to be missing each other when they are looking back and forth, but there is a legitimate desire to connect over certain things.
That accuses you of blurring the line between.
Is the New York Times, is that the same publication that got a Pulitzer Prize for false reporting on the Russiagate? Is it the same organization?
I got to check my Pulitzer counter.
See, and once again, you can see with his fingers pointing like this, that's an aggressive stance as he's talking, but he has President Trump's back right here. He's actually standing up for him. So once again, it doesn't seem like throughout this that this is anywhere close to where it was a couple of days later.
Against the New York Times for their lies about the Russiagate hoax, and that they might have to give back that Pulitzer Prize. That New York Times, let's move on.
Okay, then
Next
President
question.
Trump. I got one for President Trump. So President Trump, Biden aides.
No,
I didn't notice his
First Lady of France.
getting slapped.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, no, I just wasn't around with little X, and I said, go ahead, punch me in the face.
Now, a lot of people have had an issue with the fact that last time I said that he appeared to largely be telling the truth about this, because people said, well, Steve Bannon said 6 weeks ago he got punched because he got in a fight with somebody in the Trump administration. I do want to point out that 6 weeks is plenty of time for a bruised eye, for a black eye to recover. So the idea that he would still have that much bruising after 6 weeks, look, that may have happened, but that's not what caused this. I feel confident of that just on a factual standpoint, even body language aside.
Yeah, no, I just wasn't around with little X, and I said, go ahead, punch me in the face, and he did. Turns out even a 5-year-old punch.
So as he's talking, he puts his arms down, he leaves his body open, he doesn't do anything that appears defensive, he doesn't double down on the steepling. If you'd seen him steeple and then cross his arms as he was talking about this, or start to turn away, there are a lot of signs that would show that he's probably being deceptive, which he just isn't showing. Could it be that he's just a good liar? Possibly, but he is showing a remarkable lack of body language that would imply lying right here, or that would suggest deception, if he is in fact being deceptive.
Punching you in the face actually does.
That was X that did it?
Yeah.
X could do it. If you knew X, he
I
could
saw his
do
mom
it.
right now.
Now we're going to watch a clip of Elon Musk doing a weird head motion that people continue to insist suggests that he's taking substances or was on substances at this time.
Our country's given $5 billion plus to Harvard over a short period of time. Nobody knew that. We found that out.
So obviously that's a strange thing to do. But I think if people are stretching out their neck and they're by themselves and they're at home and nobody's paying attention, it probably would look similar. He either lacks the awareness or doesn't care what people think. Now, is it possible that he's on some sort of substances that's causing that? Of course it's possible, but he's not showing signs throughout anything else, which to me says that it's unlikely. Particularly when people talk about ketamine. If you're on a heavy psychedelic, particularly on a big dose of it, talking about all of these other things, responding the way he does, pretty consistently with how he normally does, it just seems very unlikely.
So he's working for free with DOGE.
Now, the first thing you're probably going to notice is that both Elon Musk and President Trump are steepling in their own ways. Elon Musk's is much more prominent. President Trump does have a tendency to do this, but slightly between his legs when he's talking. So this is nothing unusual for him. Elon Musk's is attempting to be very prominent. He wants to be very clear that he wants to be the expert and the smartest guy in the room.
He's kind of put a lot of his life on hold. You're okay with that?
I mean, I left it up to the lawyers and the team running Twitter. So I said, you guys do what you think it is.
So this is interesting. As they're talking about how President Trump sued Twitter, you can see he went from steepling a very hard steeple to softly closing his fingers. So there's a less confident steeple with Elon Musk at this point. President Trump does it in a somewhat more natural way, if you can notice the way that he continues to do it between his legs, but it's not really as strong and as prominent as the way that Elon Musk does it. But what this may indicate is that Elon Musk may feel that he's in a power struggle with President Trump. I don't think that President Trump feels the same way. Because the way that President Trump is sitting and the way that he behaves during this interview and all of the other interviews that we've watched where he and Elon Musk are together is the same body language he shows with everything. There's nothing new or nothing different about any of it, really. But with Elon Musk, he's showing a lot of body language like this. And like I said, this is almost an exaggerated steeple. So he wants people to see he's the smartest guy in the room. I always interpreted that as that he wanted the audience to feel that when he's talking, he wants to be the smartest expert when the audience watches. It's possible. Another interpretation of that could be that he actually, in fact, feels that way about the president, or wants to seem that he is the more powerful person in the room or the smarter guy in the room. It's possible that that's what he's trying to do.
The president's been so unfairly attacked in the media. It's really outrageous. And I've at this point spent a lot of time with the president. And
now you'll notice on the earlier clip I talked about how Elon Musk was not looking at President Trump as much. He does more of that during this interview. So as you can see from 3 months ago, he actually felt more connected to the president.
The president's been so unfairly attacked in the media. It's really outrageous. And I've at this point spent a lot of time with the president. And not once have I seen him do something that was mean or cruel or wrong. Not once.
You know, I've known him for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anybody take as much as he's taken.
Yeah.
So as you can see, Elon Musk is consistently doing the steepling again. For a brief moment, he softened his steepling, but he went right back to it, which to me says that he wants to be dominant in this interaction. He actually wants to be the one that people pay attention to and believe and listen to.
And Neuralink and all these.
Well, I mean, you know,
And that just then raises a question. You're the richest man in the world. You may not like that part. You're pretty competitive.
Neither here nor there.
I've known you a long time.
So it's interesting. They're talking about him being the richest man in the world. He stopped steepling for a minute. I know I'm focusing a lot on steepling, but I cannot overstate how important I actually think that is in all of this. But as you can see, he stopped steepling for a minute right now. Now he's interlocked his fingers. He feels less comfortable talking about his net worth next to President Trump than talking about being intelligent and being smart and so on and so forth.
But
That's why.
But he's on your team.
President.
Well, that's true. He can't top that.
He's good. You know, I wanted to find somebody smarter than him. I searched all over. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
You really tried hard.
I couldn't find anyone smarter, right? So we had it for the country.
But this is the thing.
We settled on this.
Well,
guy.
thanks for having me.
So as you can see now, it's kind of covered up by the banner at the bottom. But his hands went back to steepling as they were talking about trying to find the smartest guy, saying, I tried to find somebody smarter, but I couldn't. He went back to steepling again. So when it comes to his intellect, thinking that he is smart and powerful and all these things, that I think is what gets him wanting to be powerful. That's what gets him doing the steepling again. I know you, like I said, I know you can't see it well here, but he is back to it.
But this is the thing.
We settled on this.
Well,
guy.
thanks for having me.
So
I'm just trying to be useful
this is
here.
the interesting. This is where we are as a society, and I'm
So we'll go ahead and stop here because much of the body language is actually the same throughout the rest of this. So what did we see today? So was there some crazy hatred between the two? Was it clear that Elon Musk was headed out for Trump and that a couple of days later he would melt down? Not at all. That's not at all what I saw. In fact, I saw that for the most part, they were still connected. They still were positive interactions. Elon Musk seemed maybe a little bit more aloof at times, but nothing that seemed hostile or angry. What we did see, though, is someone who I believe, based on this, I had always thought that he wants to be the expert to the audience, but it's very possible he feels that about the president as well. And that, I think, is probably what actually ultimately created that problem. I think he may have overplayed his hand a little bit, believed that people would side with him, believed that because he has Twitter, because he has this huge audience, that he was more powerful in that way. And I think he learned very quickly that that's probably not true, that in many ways that the president is going to come out on top in this conflict. At least that's my expectation, and that's what I think is happening so far. So in terms of the body language, the most significant thing was the steepling. As I said, President Trump does that a little bit right here, but it's a little bit more natural, and he does that all the time. It doesn't seem to be specific to Elon Musk. Whereas Elon Musk, as he sits with President Trump, is really trying to appear as the smartest guy in the room. At least that's how I interpret this body language and this behavior. So it's interesting to see that once that power struggle happened, that there was an absolute meltdown, and I think he overplayed his hand. If you have any thoughts about this, or if there's anything else that you want me to analyze, or there's any other clips you want me to look at, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.